It's a celebration of America's freedom. Welcome to the Marc Scaringi Show. The Marc Scaringi Show is your place for a weekly discussion on making America great again. The important political and legal issues of the day, a celebration of the Constitution, and traditional American values. Marc is a practicing attorney, a former senatorial candidate, a Donald J. Trump-endorsed delegate, and a defender of the Constitution. His goal? To put America first. And now, celebrating America's freedoms, here's attorney Marc Scaringi.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Marc Scaringi Show. This is your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. This is the place where we talk about the important political and legal issues of the day from the perspective of putting America first. If you'd like to hear my prior podcasts of the show, read some of my columns on Penn Live, the Western Journal, and American Thinker, or to check out some great merchandise, you can look at our website, themarcscaringishow.com. Welcome to our listeners on WHP 580 AM, iHeartRadio, and to hopefully our viewers on Harrisburg 100 Facebook Live. Today we have three special guests. First, we have our own State Senator Mike Regan. Mike is a former U.S. Marshal, Deputy Inspector General, and State Representative. Now he's a state senator from the 31st District, serving parts of Cumberland and York counties here in central Pennsylvania. And Senator Regan is here to offer his support to two of our other special guests today, two judicial candidates, who I'll introduce in just a moment. So welcome to Senator Mike Regan.
Good morning, Mark.
Welcome back to the show. This is, I think, your second time on the Marc Scaringi Show.
I said good morning. It's actually afternoon, isn't it? I apologize for that.
I'll answer the morning.
Yeah, good to be with you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think you were on when we were back in Carlisle, WHYL, when
That's
you
right.
were first running for the state Senate.
I think, was I running for the House? I think I was running for the House of Representatives at the time.
It's possible. It's possible. And I think your appearance on my show may have put you over the top.
Definitely catapulted me to victory.
Excellent.
Thank you for
Great.
that. Appreciate you.
And we have two candidates for judge of the Cumberland County Court of Common Pleas. We have attorneys Kirk Sohonage and Matt Smith. Now, there are two open judicial seats in Cumberland County, and primary election day is this Tuesday. So these two men are nearing the finish line. I think there are five judicial candidates. Four of them have cross-filed on both the Republican and Democratic tickets. So if these two gentlemen are the top two vote getters on either ticket, then they'll go on to the general election in the fall. So pay close attention, Cumberland County voters. When you go to the polling booth on Tuesday, you'll see the names of these two men, Matt Smith and Kirk Sohonage, on both the Republican and Democratic ballots. And now is the time for you to call in and question your judicial candidates. And this is your chance to question and even cross-examine them if you'd like, to question potential judges who will hopefully be taking the bench in Cumberland County. And boy, I'd like to cross-examine a few judges myself, but that's not what we're here for today. But to our listeners, call in and ask these gentlemen any questions you have. Let them know what you think about our county justice system. And this is what the democratic process is all about. We here at the Marc Scaringi Show are bringing democracy right to your radio. So we're going to talk to Kirk and Matt about their judicial race in just a few moments. But first, I'd like to get our State Senator Mike Regan here to talk with us for a bit. Now, Mike, you're working hard in the Pennsylvania State Senate on behalf of your constituents in York and Cumberland counties. You've had your welfare reform bill, Senate Bill 6, become law. And you've been spending time working on important issues such as school safety, emergency preparedness, and economic development. But you've also taken the time to get involved in a judicial race, in particular, to support these two candidates we have here today, Kirk Sohonage and Matt Smith. So the question for you, Senator, is why is this judicial race important to you as a state senator and as a local resident here in central Pennsylvania?
Well, it started with, we had an opening in Cumberland County bench, and I was advised by my leadership that I should start vetting candidates to fill a vacancy. That would have been an appointment put forward by me and granted by the governor. So I had a chance to really interview every single one of the candidates who is, with the exception of Matt, because Matt was overseas fighting for our country. And I didn't get to talk to him, but I talked to all the other candidates. And I was struck by Kirk, by his, I think, vast experience on both sides. You know, he was a prosecutor as a young man and prosecuted many cases, criminal cases, drug cases, homicide cases. I think he even did a death penalty case. And then later in his career on the civil side, where he was working really hard for our senior citizens. And I think, when it comes to picking a judge, you really want someone who has kind of fought the wars, really experienced a lot of different things within the judicial system, so they can have that, that knowledge that can be imparted to the people who come before them. And I know Matt's the same way. He's more, I would say, probably more prosecutorial centric. Maybe less so on the civil side, but still some experience on the civil side. And I say Kurt more heavily on the civil side and a little less so on the prosecutorial side. So I think that both of them together kind of balance each other out. I know Kirk has that orphans court experience, which I think is important. Not every judge wants to get involved in orphans court. I think it's important when you have somebody with experience there can really add something. And they are two, not only that, qualified, yes, but also they are good family men. They have, wonderful families with kids who I know they care about, and they're just, I think, good people, good, well-rounded candidates who would make great judges.
And it's good to see you so involved. You're a state senator. You write the laws for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and then these gentlemen here hopefully will be on the judiciary, and they'll be interpreting and applying those laws in cases that come before them.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we've encountered just recently with our courts, our Pennsylvania Supreme Court, is legislating from the bench. We don't want that. We want people who are not deciding they don't like the way the law is written, so they're going to do it their way. We want people who are going to rely on the Constitution and make choices based on that. And I think that's so important. I know these two guys are conservative guys. They're constitutionalists, and they're going to do the right thing.
So your view as a state lawmaker is it's your responsibility and authority to write the laws for the people of Pennsylvania, and you don't necessarily want our judges writing those laws. You want the judges applying the law to the facts of the individual cases.
Exactly right. And, we've seen that the pendulum has swung very, very far to the left, where they're legislating. Many of these judges are legislating from the bench, and it's something, and to your question earlier, Mark, that's why I'm so involved in this race, is because we have got to really start vetting these judicial candidates to make sure we have the right ones who are going to do their job and nothing more.
Well, and many of our appellate court judges and justices come from the ranks of the courts of common pleas. And so what you're saying is now's the time to start vetting these candidates because they'll hopefully, if they win, they'll serve on the bench here at the county level. But ultimately, they could serve on the appellate courts. And it's important now for the voters to understand who their judicial candidates are because they affect our lives. And I want to talk about this in a little bit more after we get back from the commercial break. Judicial candidates, judges on the courts of common pleas throughout Pennsylvania, they impact our lives in real material ways, much more than we often think about. We think about the big felony case or the big murder case that you read in the paper, and there's the judge involved in that case. But my goodness, the civil docket on the courts is voluminous. Everything from divorce and custody and support to adoption to breach of contract, contractor disputes. It really runs the gamut. And so we're going to talk more about that, and we're going to introduce our judicial candidates, and we're going to hear directly from them, Kirk Sohonage and Matt Smith, when we return from this brief commercial break. You're listening to the Marc Scaringi Show. Stay tuned.
Now more of Marc Scaringi on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to the Marc Scaringi Show. We're here today talking to our state senator, Mike Regan, and two attorneys who are running to be the next judges of the Court of Common Pleas in Cumberland County. We have Kirk Sohonage and we have Matt Smith. And we're going to talk with Kirk first, and then we're going to talk with Matt and get them both involved and talk about the important issues, the reasons why they're running. Kirk Sohonage is the youngest of 6 children raised in southwestern Pennsylvania. During his early years, Kirk excelled in the classroom and on the athletic fields. Well, we'll have to ask him some more particular questions about that. And in the courts, earning his entrance into Washington and Lee University, where he earned a journalism degree, and he had 4 varsity letters in football. And after college, Kirk Sohonage attended law school in Colorado and Innsbruck, Austria. Wow. Focusing his studies on trial courses and international legal studies. And after law school, Sohonage returned to Pennsylvania and began his legal career, with his early years revolving around criminal law as a domestic violence prosecutor, juvenile prosecutor, and assistant district attorney. Sohonage successfully tried and convicted murderers, rapists, arsonists, burglars, and other felons. Sohonage then began working in the healthcare arena regarding Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements. In his role, he protects the rights of seniors and ensures for their health care going forward. Sohonage is married to his high school friend, Christian. Oh, high school friend. You got her early. That's how you got such a beautiful wife.
Indeed.
You snatched her up quite young. And they have 3 teenage daughters, beautiful teenage daughters, Abigail, Liliana, and Juliet, and they make their home in Camp Hill. Welcome, Kirk Sohonage.
Thank you, Mr. Scaringi. How are you?
I'm doing great,
Good.
And primary election day is rapidly approaching, and I know you and Matt have been working so hard. It must feel a little bit good that it's almost like you can see the end line. The finish line is rapidly approaching. And Kirk, why do you want to become Cumberland County's next judge?
Well, again, thank you for having us, Mark. The end line is coming fast. We've been pushing hard. I mean, the reason I think I think I'm entitled, no, but the reason I think I should be the next judge is because I bring experience I would bring experience to the bench, experience in the courtroom. And I think that's very important for our county judges. County judges or the county courts are where the action happens. It's like Law and Order, the TV show, if you've ever seen it. Everything's tried there. There are trials nowhere else. You have district judge, maybe hearings, but the trials actually happen in the courtroom. So you need experience in the courtroom. And I bring that experience not only as a prosecutor, but also on the civil side. I mean, I've spent my career in the courtroom handling trials, but also hearings on a regular basis. So I bring that to the table, to the bench. I also bring, I think, character and integrity to the bench, because what's important for a judge, in my opinion, is for the constituents to know that they're going to have an honest person on the bench who's not going to prejudge matters and who's going to look at the cases as they come and not have their mind made up before the litigants get in the courtroom. And you, as a practicing attorney, I'm sure have encountered that sometimes. I have. I think a lot of people have. And that causes me concern. So at the end of the day, I think I bring experience and character. And the reason I want to be a judge is it's a continuation of giving back to the community. I mean, that's what I've done my whole career. I've been a prosecutor, but also I've been a volunteer in my community. I haven't served in the military like Matt has or done some other things like other people have, but you can serve in various ways. And I served my community, chairman of the zoning board in Camp Hill for 11 years, president of the Boosters Club, volunteering to be coaches. So, I mean, I've given back my whole career. At this stage in my life, I think professionally, I'm where I need to be a qualified judge, and personally, it's the right time for me as well.
And you're listening to Kirk Sohonage, who is a candidate for judge in Cumberland County Court of Common Pleas. And to my listeners on WHP 580 and iHeartRadio, if you'd like to talk to your judicial candidates, ask them questions about why they're running or what they hope to do as hopefully your next judge, you're welcome to call in 717-540-0580. That's 717-540-0580. You can also comment live on Harrisburg 100 Facebook, and if your comment is nice and pleasant, we'll read it live on the air. But this is a way for the voters to communicate and ask questions directly of their judicial candidates. And Kirk Sohonage, one of your campaign themes is that you are proven tough and conservative. And you say, a judge must be tough and fair to keep our families safe. As a former prosecutor with over 20 years of broad-based experience, you can trust that I will protect our communities and our constitutional rights in my courtroom. So I wanted to get your thoughts on some of our constitutional rights. And the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, the right to keep and bear arms. So many central Pennsylvanians are gun owners, whether for hunting, target shooting, or personal protection. So what does the Second Amendment mean to you?
Well, as judicial candidates, we're sort of confined about issues that we can talk about, and we can't express opinions on matters that could conceivably come before us. And when I get asked this question, a lot of the times I like to say this. I'm proudly someone who will cling to my religion and my guns. I mean, that's the type of person I am. When people question the Second Amendment, I'm really sort of dumbfounded by that because it's pretty clearly written. We have the right to bear arms. I mean, I don't think there's a question, and where the question even arises or can come up, I can't even understand. So without directly answering the question, I hope I've answered your question. I mean, that's where I stand. I believe that the Constitution's clear on that issue, and really why there's a question or how there's a question, I don't know.
So the Second Amendment is pretty clear to you. The issue of the right to life has been all over state and national news with the heartbeat abortion bill in Georgia and many other states, and a near total ban on abortion at all stages in Alabama. And in Pennsylvania, a bill banning abortions based on a diagnosis of Down syndrome passed the House last week. And I'm not asking for your specific thoughts on that bill, of course, but just generally speaking, what are your views on the right to life?
Well, I'm a Christian, and I believe in life from conception to death. And that's sort of my position, again, without giving you a direct statement on various matters that could conceivably come before us. I must say this, though. If you look at some of the laws that have recently been passed, not the Alabama law, but let's go back to the New York law a couple months ago. I mean, we have, I guess, two diverse factions, I think, that are setting this issue on a collision course, and the matter is going to go back before the Supreme Court, probably within the decade, because they're so extreme, and our country tends to be so extreme on this issue that they're setting this up for a collision course. So the matter is going to be revisited, and at that time, whatever the law is, if I'm lucky enough to be a judge, then I'm going to have to follow it. But personally, I support life at all levels.
Now, as an attorney, you have a lot of experience prosecuting crime, including violent crimes. What skills and experience have you acquired as a former prosecutor in Cumberland County that you think will help serve you as a judge?
Well, and I do want to clarify something. When Senator Regan spoke earlier, he said I had tried a death penalty case, and I have not tried a death penalty case. I have tried a number of homicides before juries to verdict. Guilty
that was an
verdicts.
honest mistake.
And
it's a long resume to try to remember.
It is.
It
was exhausting just reading
either, right? But what skills? I mean, again, and when you talk to Matt, you're going to get the same scenario. I think as a prosecutor, it tells you something about our character, right? Because you don't prosecute because you're making money. You prosecute because it's the right thing to do. You're wearing the white hat. You're serving the community and doing the right thing. But as a prosecutor in the courtroom, you gain skills, trial skills, evidentiary skills. You understand how the courtroom operates, and that becomes very important for a trial judge. If you don't have that trial experience in the Court of Common Pleas courtroom, then I think you're coming to the table not as strong as some of the other candidates like Matt and I. There's candidates in this race who have no courtroom trial experience, and I think they'll be way behind any other judge that could possibly be elected. You can't take the bench and have a learning curve and learn while you're sitting there. That doesn't help anybody. So I think what I bring is, again, courtroom experience, trial experience, not only as a criminal prosecutor, but on the civil side as well. And that's important for the Court of Common Pleas.
And we're talking here with Kirk Sohonage, who is a candidate for judge, Court of Common Pleas in Cumberland County. And Kirk, in an interview with the Cumberland Sentinel, you said the courts need more specialization and that you support the creation of an orphans court division to address family law issues. So why do you think Cumberland County should consider a special court division to address family law issues?
Well, let me talk to you a little bit about the Orphans Court. That's a passion of mine. I was a solicitor for the Orphans Court for 10 years, and it's an area in my private practice that I almost work in exclusively. The Orphans Court is not necessarily family court. The Orphans Court is a court that oversees matters for individuals that can't handle them themselves, whether it's a minor, an orphan, an incapacitated person, a trust, an estate. It's a specific division that is created by statute in this Commonwealth. So you can have criminal divisions, civil divisions, and an orphans court division. What you tend to find, there's 60 judicial districts in Pennsylvania. Of those districts, there are 26 orphans court divisions, which have single or more than one judge handling those matters. That's important because it allows someone to specialize, a court to specialize and understand the issues more effectively and move cases more efficiently. So that's a passion of mine. I think an orphans court division is appropriate in Cumberland County due to the increase in population. You find the larger counties in this Commonwealth do have orphans court divisions. And again, it's created by statute. So if I'm lucky enough to get through here, I might be knocking on the senator's door and asking him maybe to address this issue, because I think it's important. I think it's overdue here. And with our population increase, I think it will certainly help expedite matters and help litigants just deal with cases.
We're talking with Kirk Sohonage and Matt Smith, who are two candidates for the Court of Common Pleas in Cumberland County. We have State Senator Mike Regan here as well. We're going to take a brief commercial break. When we get back, we're going to introduce Matt Smith. We're going to get him involved in the conversation. We're going to find out why he's running and what he wants to accomplish potentially as your next judge here in central Pennsylvania. You're listening to the Marc Scaringi Show. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
Let's get back to the Marc Scaringi Show on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to the Marc Scaringi Show, your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. This is the place where we talk about the important political and legal issues of the day from the perspective of putting America, Pennsylvania, and Cumberland County now first. And we certainly are talking about legal issues and political issues. We have State Senator Mike Regan, we have Kirk Sohonage and Matt Smith, who are two candidates for judge in Cumberland County. And this is your opportunity to ask the judge or the potential judge. Election day is rapidly approaching. It's on Tuesday, and these guys are out and working hard. I know that they're knocking on doors every spare moment they get, trying to get their name out there and meet as many voters in Cumberland County as they can. And they're here on the Marc Scaringi Show. And you're welcome to call in 717-540-0580. That's 717-540-0580. This is your opportunity to ask a question of a judicial candidate, get his thoughts on why he wants to become judge and what he intends to do once he sits on the bench. And we've heard from Kirk Sohonage, and now we're going to hear from Matt Smith, our other candidate. Matt has both extensive civilian prosecutorial experience and military experience, including active and reserve duty. He's currently a first assistant district attorney in Cumberland County and a judge advocate of the United States Army, Pennsylvania Army National Guard. As first assistant district attorney, he's conducted over 100 jury trials, handling over 500 criminal cases a year, from misdemeanor DUIs all the way up to homicide. A military officer for 23 years, Matt has served in Iraq with the 56th Stryker Brigade Combat Team as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. While in Iraq, he worked alongside local judges to establish the rule of law. Additionally, he served as a military prosecutor overseeing more than 130 disciplinary actions and 129 investigations. And most recently, Matt Smith served in an 11-month tour in Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, where he instructed foreign officers on the law of war and performed temporary duty as the United States Embassy in Kuwait. He's earned the Bronze Star Medal, a combat action badge, as well as the Airborne and Air Assault badges, among others. And Matt lives in Camp Hill with his wife, Krista, and their two children. Welcome, Matt Smith.
Welcome, Mark. Thank you for having me here. And I like to say that I'm honored to be here sitting next to these two gentlemen. We've been working hard. I know Kirk has. This morning I was in Dickinson North with Kelly Niederer, who is running for treasurer as well. I think this year we have a really good team. We have endorsed candidates. We've been working well together. And we're just continuing to work up until, again, Tuesday, May 21st for the primary.
Now, Matt Smith, you have a tremendous amount of experience as a prosecutor in Cumberland County and in the Judge Advocate General Corps. So you've got that. You've got impeccable, tough on crime credentials. So I'm going to ask you a question not related to prosecutions.
Of course you would.
You've also served as well, you've got that down pat. You are a tough on crime prosecutor, tremendous experience. You'll do an outstanding job presiding over a criminal court in Cumberland County, but you've also served as a military defense attorney on 140 cases defending U.S. servicemen and women who have been charged with various offenses in the military justice system. So you've been on both sides of the courtroom, a prosecutor and a defense attorney. And so do you think that your experience in performing those dual and oppositional roles will have an impact on how you decide cases as a judge?
So with my military experience, as you said, I was a military defense attorney as well. As a judge advocate in general, though, the Army, we embed our attorneys with our units when they deploy, and especially the Guard deploys as units. My experience, not only as a defense attorney, but we have a broad range of experience, which includes operational law in an actual live combat setting where we're advising commanders on the law of war. And I've negotiated international agreements at the Kuwait Embassy, U.S. Embassy in Kuwait. We've had contract disputes where a service member has struck and killed someone in Jordan. Where is insurance covering the claim, or do we have to go to the FCA, the Federal Claims Act, to attempt to pay that out? Or do we even have liability because the individual walked out into traffic? So there's a variety of issues that I've been confronted with as a military attorney. As a defense attorney, though, it's weird because you're a prosecutor and you wouldn't think that you would jive with a defense attorney. But what I find that both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, and certainly you've been a defense attorney, and I know we've had some cases together, but it's really about getting to the right and just answer or resolution of the case. Many of the young soldiers I defended were, dabbled in marijuana. There's a lot of kids from Philly who grew up in that environment where the Army was their only way out. And it was my duty to, articulate that to the panel of 3 officers who have served and who were commanders and no soldiers, and say, look, this kid did a mistake. The Army is really all he has. He wants to serve. Let him serve again. Let him demonstrate to you his resolve. Sometimes I was successful, sometimes I wasn't, but it was an honor to defend those young soldiers.
Yeah, and we're talking with Matt Smith, candidate for judge in Cumberland County, and you're welcome to call in 717-540-0580, 717-540-0580. And Matt he's a career prosecutor, has a tremendous experience in prosecuting crimes. Also has some experience on the other side as a defense attorney in the United States military defense system. And, I worked in the Attorney General's office for several years, the Attorney General, tough on crime and all of that. And when I got out of the Attorney General's office, I started practicing in a small private law practice, and I started with criminal defense cases. And a lot of my friends were like, what are you doing as a defense attorney? And Kirk was talking about the importance of defending the Constitution and our constitutional rights. And as a defense attorney, you do get to be there right where kind of the rubber hits the road in defending the constitutional rights of the people of Pennsylvania. So I think there is a lot to offer, and it's good to hear that you've got experience on both sides of the courtroom, so to speak. And Matt Smith, your website indicates that as you're an adoption advocate, and adoption is a part of the civil court system as well, and that you believe in the sanctity of human life. And I wanted to ask if you could explain your views on the right to life. We heard from Kirk Sohonage. We got his views. What are your views, Matt Smith?
Well, you've met my children. But for the courage of their birth mothers, I would not be a father here today. So I do believe in the sanctity of life. But I think, as Kirk mentioned, we have current laws right now, and one of the reasons that Senator Regan supports us is that we won't legislate from the bench. The law is what the law is, and in certain roles, the judge acts as a fact finder and determines fact, but more often than not, they just apply the law to the facts as, the jury, as a fact finder, finds them. Now, it's important to have conservative candidates because, when you perhaps move up, you as an elected official, the constituents deserve to have someone who reflects their values. But as a common plea judge, you do the job that's in front of you. So I believe in the sanctity of human life, but I uphold the law as written.
And we have time. We're going to take a few calls. If you gentlemen are ready for that. We have Paul from Harrisburg here on the Marc Scaringi Show. We're here with Matt Smith, Kirk Sohonage, candidates for judge in Cumberland County, and State Senator Mike Smith. Paul, what's your question?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. My question is to the military judge, the military man.
That's our candidate, Matt Smith.
Matt Smith. What is your opinion of the Bo Bergdahl case? If you were the judge in the case, how would you have handled Bo Bergdahl for his seemingly traitorous behavior?
Now, Paul, thanks for the question, and I'm gonna take you off the phone line, give Matt a chance to answer, and then we're gonna go to a commercial break. Paul from Harrisburg, thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Matt Smith.
Paul, thank you for the question. I can't tell you how I would specifically rule in that case because I wasn't the judge. I wasn't there. And I can't, I don't know what was presented in court because, again, as the judge, you're applying the law as written. Now, I can tell you my feelings as a service member, which those acts were traitorous, did put people's lives in danger. But again, Paul, I can't tell you as a judge what I would do because I was not presented with the facts as they were presented in court. But thank you for the question.
And we're here with Matt Smith and Kirk Sohonage as well, and State Senator Mike Regan here on the Marc Scaringi Show. And you're welcome to call in 717-540-0580. And Matt, you did an interview with the Carlisle Sentinel, and you stated that consistency will be your watchword if elected. You said you must abide by the rules. You want to be consistent. You want to treat everyone fairly, and I want it to be a pleasure to try a case in my courtroom, win or lose. Now, as an attorney, those words are music to my ears, and I'm going to ask you to explain what you mean by that to the people of Central Pennsylvania who may have very limited impact with our court system. They may only be in court once or twice in their lifetime, hopefully never, but on occasion we're in court on very happy circumstances such as adoption, and you've mentioned you're an adoption advocate, and that's good to know because you'll have a judge in Cumberland County who has experience in adoption and how important adoptions are. And when we return from this brief commercial break, we're going to continue to talk to Matt Smith and Kirk Sohonage, and we'll get State Senator Mike Regan back in here in the last segment of our show. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned. We'll be back right after this brief commercial break.
Now back to the Marc Scaringi Show on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to the Marc Scaringi Show, your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. This is where we talk about the important political and legal issues of the day. And we really have the right cast of characters for that. We have a politician, a state senator, Mike Regan, a lawmaker, makes the law. And we have two judicial candidates who will apply the law to the cases that appear before them. They're running to become judges. The primary election day is rapidly approaching. It's this Tuesday, so they're working as hard as they can to get out the vote, to get their supporters to the ballot box on Tuesday, and to meet as many voters as they can between now and Tuesday. And you're welcome to call in and ask these judicial candidates questions you have. And for gentlemen who wish to become judges here in central Pennsylvania, call in 717-540-0580. That's 717-540-0580. And we're talking with Matt. We had Kirk Sohonage here, and we're also talking with Matt Smith. And so, Matt, I was reading an interview you gave to the Carlisle Sentinel about how, as a judge, judges must abide by the rules, and you want to be consistent and treat everyone fairly who appears before you. And abiding by the rules and consistency is music to my ears as an attorney. We, too, want our judges to apply the rules, apply the law, and be consistent in the application of the law. I tell you, it helps us do our jobs when we're explaining to our clients the relative strengths or weaknesses of our case if we know that when we take it in front of a judge, we're going to get a consistent application of the law to the facts of the case. So, Matt Smith, your thoughts?
Well, Mark, we've had this conversation before, and I know Kirk feels the same way. The three of us sitting here are litigants, and we have been in court. The court is not, a lot of people say it's the judge's court. They control the courtroom, and they do. They manage the flow of the courtroom, but it's really the people's courtroom. They are elected officials. They are beholden to the constituency, and they are there to facilitate legal actions within the courtroom. So you shouldn't be necessarily hesitant to come in there, and it's important that the rules are applied evenly across the board, because that's why you have rules, in Pennsylvania rules of criminal procedure and rules of evidence and civil procedure, because no matter what courtroom you come in as a litigant, you want to have a even application of those rules, even though the judge ultimately makes a decision based upon the law and perhaps it's the facts. But as litigants, it doesn't have to be a pleasure, but it has to be professional. They deserve to have a judge who is going to sit there and listen, unbiased, and apply the law.
And you're listening to Matt Smith, and we also have Kirk Sohonage, candidates for judge in Cumberland County, and we're going to take another phone call, and then I want to get to another issue about the issue between mandatory minimum sentences and discretion for judges in sentencing, and I think that's an important issue. We have a lawmaker here today, so we're gonna pick his brain and get his thoughts on that. But first, we have Bill from Carlisle. You're on the Marc Scaringi Show.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
My question refers to times I've been on jury duty. Particularly one case, one of our current judges, after the evidence was presented, we went into the jury room. Within 10 minutes, we all agreed that the person was not guilty. We went out, gave him a thing, and afterwards, the judge basically told us, even though there was no evidence, the state police, we should have paid more attention to what state police said. It seems to me that what the police say means more than what the evidence says or what an ordinary citizen says, and I don't think that's right. I'd just like their opinion on that.
Hey, Bill, before we get their opinions, let me ask you a question. What was the verdict? Was the verdict not guilty?
Not guilty.
Okay.
Within 10 minutes, the jury said, "Hey, she's not." It was a woman. She's not guilty. There was no evidence. Was she guilty or not? It wasn't proven that she was guilty. There was no evidence.
But
it's just a state police word.
But the judge wasn't happy about your verdict. Bill from Carlisle, and I'm going to hang up with you, and then I'm going to let Kirk Sohonage, thanks for calling, Bill. I'm going to let Kirk Sohonage or Matt Smith, whoever would like to take this question. Judges have a tremendous amount of influence in their own courtrooms, and here we have a case from a caller who the jurors met, and they voted, and it was a not guilty verdict, but apparently the judge wasn't too happy, perhaps, with that particular verdict. Who wants to take this question?
So in my experience, I've done about 100 or so jury trials. I find that juries typically get it right. They have a way to suss out the evidence and the testimony, and a police officer brings special maybe skills and observations to the table. So in that sense, you listen to their observations, but their testimony is the same as any other testimony and should be weighed the same. Do they have particular skills? Yes, they do. But again, legally speaking, you weigh all the testimony fairly. So I'm not sure about that particular judge or who that judge was or their comment. But again, as a juror, you weigh all the testimony evenly, but you do take into effect certain experience and skills that some of the witnesses may have, and it could be any witness.
Well, and that's the fairness that both of you gentlemen have talked about today is so critically important, because being a judge is such a powerful position. And even if it's a jury trial and you're not actually rendering the verdict, the jury is, everything you say in that courtroom has an influence and an effect. And I'm thinking of one of my first trials in Dauphin County when I used to actually try cases as a criminal defense attorney, and I gave what I thought was of course, terrific closing argument. We were very happy, and then the judge gave his instructions to the jury. And it was horrifying. I mean, I thought I was guilty. I thought everybody was guilty by the time the judge got done just reading the instructions. And afterwards, he pulled me aside and said, "Boy, Mark, that was a brilliant closing argument, and that's why I had to give those." And then he stopped talking because he caught himself. That's why he had to give those pro-prosecution jury instructions. And so Bill from Carlisle is making the point that, judges, they can really influence the way the way a trial unfolds and its eventual conclusion. Kirk Sohonage.
I mean, there's no question the judge has that power. And in this case, I'm glad the judge talked after the trial and not before their verdict. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's the power of our legal system. We have a jury pool or a jury of 12 people. They're going to come to a decision, and what their decision is based on the facts presented. I mean, if the case wasn't presented well, then the verdict's going to be what the verdict is. I certainly don't think it's the judge's position to come out and tell somebody they've done something wrong. I would take exception to that, but not something I would do. Every judge acts differently. At the end of the day, though, the jurors are going to make the decision. And maybe the case was poorly presented. Maybe the witnesses were bad. Maybe the evidence wasn't strong enough. I don't know. But it's not necessarily the judge's role, I think, to influence in any way, shape, or form.
And let's get State Senator Mike Regan back in the conversation. If we have enough time, I do want to try to do this mandatory minimum sentence discretionary aspect of it. But Mike Regan.
Yeah, so, prior to becoming a member of the legislature, I was a U.S. Marshal and spent a lot of time before judges because part of our responsibility was the protection of the federal judiciary. And I will say that the judges in the Middle District are all very great, very distinguished. But I did travel around the country and was around a lot of judges. And I did see, quite frankly, many times something we called black robe disease, where judges, once they get that power, they start to treat everyone in their courtroom poorly. Very disappointing to see that. So when I was making my decision as to who I was going to support in this race, that was something I factored into. It's like, I want guys who are reasonable, who are good people, nice people, and won't, form that horrible black robe disease, because that can be really debilitating to lawyers and defendants, and just the whole judicial process. And
it looks like we're not going to have enough time to get into the particular issue that I wanted to, but in the few minutes that we have left, I want to ask Kirk Sohonage and Matt Smith for some of their closing thoughts, as if they were giving closing arguments to the jury. The voters are about to render their verdict in just a few days at the ballot box on Tuesday. You guys have been at this hard for a long time. Kirk Sohonage, what is your closing argument to the jury, the voters of Cumberland County?
My closing argument is this. In the next few days, you're going to get bombarded, and you've gotten bombarded with mailers and pieces of literature on all the candidates. And my position is this. Do your research. Look at the candidates. There's some crazy statements being made, people handling thousands, 10,000 cases, 7,000. This stuff's ridiculous. It's untrue. And do your research, because people are saying things that aren't true. But when you look at guys like Matt and I, I mean, we're not boasting or bragging and giving you unbelievable figures. We're talking about our credentials, what we can bring to the table, and how we're going to be fair. So I would just ask you to do your research as a voter. And at the end of the day, I think you'll decide on Matt and I. Thank you.
And in 1 minute, Matt Smith, candidate for judge, Cumberland County, your closing argument to the voters of Cumberland County.
It's the sum total of experiences. There's many traits that go into a judge, from trial experience to legal ability to administrative experience and ability to the mental and physical capacity to do the job. Are you going to show up every day on time, to do the job that's in front of you? The voters need to look at all of that, and a defect in one of those areas could be fatal to all of them. You need good judgment. You need temperament. You need all of those things to form a complete package to sit on that bench and be an elected official. Thank you.
And you've heard from Matt Smith. You've heard from Kirk Sohonage. They're both running for judge in Cumberland County. Check out their Facebook and websites to learn much more about these two candidates. And special thanks to State Senator Mike Regan for making this all happen and for giving his full-throated support to Kirk Sohonage and Matt Smith for judge. That's all the time we have today. Thanks for listening to the Marc Scaringi Show. Tune in same time, this time next week, for the next episode.